Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning if you're in Australia. Dr. Rob here from Pain Free for Life. I really appreciate you guys joining me today. Today, we're going to be talking about electromagnetic fields. And this is a little bit different than, say, microcurrent therapy or any of the other things we usually talk about. There's a bunch of reasons we might be concerned about EMFs. And I'm going to cover pretty much all of them in this video here today. So let me get my screen shared for you. You can see my presentation. Yeah. So about once a year, if I can fit it in, I like to talk about electromagnetic fields because we get so many new people that come in and that are suffering from various different ailments. There are also a lot of people as well that kind of don't follow on these things. They follow us and they think microcurrent is the thing, and it is a huge deal, but they don't look at the dangers of EMFs. And it's often, I find, when people hear me present about it, they think, that does sound like me. And so when you actually take the time to watch this presentation, whether you're watching it on a replay or you're watching it live, consider what your health journey has been so far, because the invisible dangers of electromagnetic fields are something that many people will consider to be total hokum and not real at all. And others will consider to be a very big deal and a very scary thing. And I think it can be kind of the silent, subtle killer. We're going to get into that as we get through the presentation here. So, I guess without further ado, I will start. I did mention before I hit record that, of course, I will be answering questions towards the end of the video. If you want to mention this, I'm going to have it on Facebook as well. I'll have my Facebook open so I can see. I'm just going to mute myself. But you will be able to ask questions there and ask questions in the chat or in the Q&A box. I will answer them at the end. Yes, this is being recorded. The recording will be emailed out. So if you can't stay or you just want to rewatch it for more information, do not worry. It will be recorded. So in this webinar, I'm going to talk about the invisible dangers all around us, how they impact our bodies, and most importantly, how we can arm ourselves to defend against them. I'm also going to discuss my own experience with EMFs. And I never used to really consider myself electrically sensitive, so this was kind of a bit of a reveal for me. But also experiences with patients that have had COVID and electromagnetic fields as well, since COVID seems to awaken something in the cells that makes them more sensitive to these signals. And this has become kind of an undeniable fact that I have experienced in the last few years, where things that were bothering people before, that were not bothering people before, suddenly started to bother them. So for those of you who are new, brief who I am. I'm Dr. Rob Van Bergen, quite a few years younger in that picture. I think 5 years younger. I wasn't a doctor then. I was just helping my parents build their business, and that was my goal. But I essentially have had microcurrent in my life for as long as I can remember. Energy medicine, microcurrent, all of those things. And it was really just wanting to become a part of this on a bigger scale and actually be able to work on and treat people that pushed me to the point of getting my doctorate. Because at this point in time, I had already done way more education than I ever thought I would, with a degree in English, business, and anthropology, and a minor in history. I was kind of feeling like I was done with school. But it was only when I was working in the office trying to do some accounting work, and my dad was treating a patient in the background. My dad, Dr. John Hashay, for those of you who don't know, that I thought to myself, I want to do that. I want to see the results, and I want to be the one that's giving those results, because this woman was so happy. She'd come in limping, barely able to walk. She limped down the stairs. Our office was in a basement at the time. And he treated her, and then she was running up and down the stairs and talking about how she was going to dance again, and this is a miracle. And I was like, "Ooh!" But this is more than just a business. I want to be a part of this. My dad told me no, I couldn't treat people. I didn't have insurance, so rather than just try my best to be able to do what I wanted to do there, I had to go back to school. And so I obtained my bachelor's in holistic health sciences in 2019. And this allowed me to start practicing, though it was certainly more difficult than I wanted it to be. In 2021, I continued my education as I was working, and I received my doctorate in natural medicine and my PhD in natural medicine as well. And my dissertation was focused on the benefits of non-invasive vagus nerve stimulation for the resolution of inflammation in the body. A big deal for many people, a big deal for microcurrent to know that we can resolve that inflammatory response. In 2022, even though it was one of my extended life goals, I was awarded a doctorate in humanitarian services for my work in the field of natural medicine by the World Organization of Natural Medicine. I knew my dad had been awarded one a few years before, and I was like, that's something I want to get to. That's kind of on my bucket list. So to be awarded it so fast was quite overwhelming, and it made me have to think about what I wanted for my future, really. In 2023, we completed our Wall Street Journal bestseller, and we hit that bestseller list on our book, The Hash-8 Protocol for Pain Resolution, and we founded the Sana Institute. Being able to essentially create practitioners from our pool of people that are learning how to use the microcurrent in general and who just want to be able to get out there and help other people and start their own businesses doing this. This was a long-term goal for me as well. We've wanted to do this for years, and to finally be able to be at that point, launching in March, the first course with quite a lot of students signed up already. I'm very, very excited to see what all of us can do together to change the world of chronic pain. So that's kind of a little bit about me. It's a little bit about what we do, but how does this connect to electromagnetic fields? Energy medicine is all around us. It is part of what makes up our day-to-day, the same as electromagnetic fields. EMFs for me have been a part of my life for only, I'd say, the last 10 years as something I've been truly concerned about. But they've been a problem for people all around the world for a lot longer than that. Many of you may remember the advent of smart meters and the concerns around those. These readers that would wirelessly send your electric information to the power company. And part of me thought this was stoppable by simply saying no. And in fact, my parents' house to this day still has a big sign on the thing, and they have to come and read the meter saying, this is not allowed to be a smart meter. We do not consent to this. There are people here that could die from electromagnetic fields. And so, I was sort of thinking to myself, this is just what everyone that was concerned would do. But what I didn't really think about at the time is that if you get your EMFs under control and you are making sure you're doing everything right, if the guy next door and the guy behind you and the lady over there all get smart meters, well, you're still being bombarded and surrounded. And so to this day, there's still a big sign on the front, and they still have to send someone out to read the meter. But it is an interesting point, right? Because it's something that everyone kind of had a concern about, and we don't like change in general, but did it actually make a big difference? Well, for me, electromagnetic fields reared their ugly heads a couple of years ago in actually affecting me versus the patients that I'd seen that had chronic disease. And I'll talk about that a little bit in this presentation here. So what are EMFs? Well, in recent years, science has determined how the human body receives and uses information from the Earth's electromagnetic field. So the Earth itself, the planet we live on, essentially emanates an electromagnetic field. Just like everything does in life, everything has its own frequency. You emit an electromagnetic field as well. Now, there are several billion crystalline magnetites in the human brain, in addition to DNA and the pineal gland, and these are meant to receive guiding information from the Earth's electromagnetic frequencies. These frequencies reside between the Earth's crust and the ionosphere and are known as the Schumann resonances. If you are into alternative health, you've probably heard the Schumann resonances before. They run between 7.83 hertz, so let's just say 7 hertz for simplicity, and around 33 hertz, so that's 33.8. We need these frequencies to maintain a healthy body balance and to function optimally as a person. And we can achieve this by running the frequencies through the device into our hands and our feet, right? We know this with microcurrent. We can do the grounding protocol to essentially give these cells that energy. What we do when we do this is recharge the weakened cells by adding those frequencies to it. In these ways, in the way of an electromagnetic field here, this is a good thing. This is something that we need in order to thrive. Today, however, the Earth's electromagnetic field is polluted with artificial frequencies. So the human body instead receives junk produced by the AC electricity and the wireless technology that we are surrounded with. Some people are so sensitive to electromagnetic fields that they've actually moved to different countries to escape the bombardments of smart meters and other types of technology, places where wireless does not exist at this point in time. They do this because, again, as I mentioned, even though they may refuse to let the technology be attached to their own home, their neighbors might not. And the sheer coverage that these man-made EMFs have is massive. We can't escape these frequencies, right? Despite our best efforts. I know that when I'm walking through town, if I were to go into the Wi-Fi section of my phone, I would have so many networks that I could join if I only had the password. But all of those networks are overlapping and hitting me. They are practically inescapable. So what's the problem with this, right? Well, EMFs or electromagnetic fields are a primary source of dangerous non-ionizing radiation that's emitted by consumer electronics. Exposure to EMFs has been reported to cause a whole slew of health problems, some of them that are totally irreversible. What we have seen in our experience is that the following ailments can be triggered by the exposure to EMFs. So the first one, and one of the most common, is extreme fatigue, both adrenal fatigue and mental fatigue. There can be personality changes from individuals as well, cancer, joint swelling, headaches, chronic pain, autoimmune disease, and more. In people that are constantly exposed to this non-ionizing radiation, we see that increased risk of health problems. Children are particularly susceptible to the dangers of EMFs. The children's brainwaves have not fully developed, their cells are still growing, and at this point in time, they are like these cells are like little antennas taking in all of the negative from these technologies. There's a condition called electromagnetic hypersensitivity. This is an actual medical condition, and it's recognized by the government of Australia to cause disability. So you can actually go on disability because of EHS. It's also recognized as a disorder in Europe, as well as by the World Health Organization, for what that is worth. In the US, however, and Canada as well, authorities are largely silent on the issue. Research, though, indicates the health dangers of EMFs is starting to quietly appear, and more subtly than you would expect in some individuals. For example, according to the National Institute of Health, EMFs can cause oxidative stress on the body. So this is an official thing from the NIH, right? And someone just asked, will there be a recording? Yes, there will, don't worry. Electromagnetic fields have various chemical effects, okay, including causing deterioration in large molecules in cells and imbalance in ionic equilibrium. Oxidative stress occurs if the antioxidant defense system is unable to prevent the harmful effects of free radicals. Several studies have reported that exposure to EMFs results in oxidative stress in many, many tissues of the body. An exposure to EMF is known to increase free radical concentrations that can inevitably lead to chronic disease. What does oxidative stress do? Because it sounds like it's more complicated than it is. Essentially, when we're exposed to oxidative stress, the process results in damage to the proteins, lipids, and DNA within our body. It can affect our entire metabolic cycle. EMFs can also magnify the oxidative stress from other environmental factors like UV light, drugs, stress, smoking, alcohol, and other biochemical reactions as well. Exposure to EMFs can occur from a multitude of sources, but there's one particular source that nearly all of us carry directly on our bodies, nearly every waking moment, And I'm holding mine right here in my hand. It's right in front of me as we speak so that I can look at Facebook. But just to see the effects of oxidative stress on a cell, note the normal cell here on the slide. Looks pretty healthy. It kind of looks like one of those cookies with a cherry in the middle of it. I don't remember what they're called. But as the free radicals damage the cell, it kind of withers away. And so severe oxidative stress will cause cell death. Cell death, if you follow me on the Jumpstart last week and the week before, can lead to channelopathies, which can lead to the creation of disease from cell death on top of the creation of disease from electromagnetic fields. So the dangers of the dreaded cell phone. So most people, and I know that there are many that don't have cell phones that follow us because they've chosen not to, or they use a flip phone because it's less likely to have a wireless signal in it. But the standard cell phone nowadays carries a lot of electromagnetic field issues within it, and we carry this within our pockets every day. We rely on cell phones to do business, keep in contact with people we love, and even research information about our health and well-being as well. For many of us, these devices have become almost an appendage, right? They're a part of our body. We carry them on us, we press them, right? Sometimes for hours, millimeters away from our brain. And often people even leave them next to their heads while they sleep. They put them there and use them as an alarm clock instead. So cell phones can have a danger component to them. And when we ask the question is, are cell phones dangerous? I do think it is a loaded question. But there are enough studies for sure to show cause for concern. The research typically pointed towards connections between these devices and the development of brain tumors, but other potential side effects reported in the research include DNA damage, disruption of melatonin production, which we see more and more often nowadays from EMFs, overproduction of calcium, which can lead to bone spurs and calcium deposits in the body that can cause pain and other diseases. Slow cellular repair, rise in cortisol levels, so essentially a rise in cellular stress, toxins passing through the blood-brain barrier, so they actually can permit toxins to get through an area that they shouldn't by weakening the blood-brain barrier, thyroid imbalances. This is huge for anyone with thyroid issues. The thyroid is like a sponge for EMFs. It absorbs that radiation like crazy. And even fertility problems. Men, women carrying these in their pockets next to their groins, it's putting radiation in those areas, right? And it is a problem that we got to be concerned about. Now, that is, of course, as if brain tumors were not enough, right, on top of all of this. And this is where it starts to get stressful to consider it. There are so many reasons that research could be buried or other studies published counteracting the results of those that point to harm. Because I would say that at least half of the studies that talk about dangerous EMF things from cell phones, there's another amount that equal to that say that it's not a problem. However, and we've witnessed this directly, I think I talk about this in the presentation, the cell phone industry is estimated to be worth about $80 billion a year in the United States alone, and that was back in 2019. It is 4 times the worth of the pharmaceutical industry in Canada in that same year. So if you are with me in believing that pharmaceutical companies bury alternative medicine technologies, you can be darn tootin' straight that it's going on in the cell phone industry as well. And although I can't name names, we will be talking about our experience in working directly with one of the biggest cell phone distributors in Canada and how that went for us. Another thing is electric cars. So if cell phones weren't enough, now cars are becoming more and more dangerous as well. Electric vehicles come equipped with voice activation, massive batteries, built-in 5G connections, and huge screens for controlling all of the features of the car. It is honestly like sitting inside a microwave when you're driving around. The truth is, though, right, that modern electric cars are efficient, and initiatives around the world mean that it will soon be illegal to produce new vehicles that run exclusively on fossil fuels. So just as 5G technology came, despite numerous warnings, I believe so will electric cars. Now, I have a personal experience with this. It was time for me to upgrade my car about 2 years ago, and it made sense for me to go electric. My previous SUV was costing me over $100 a week in fuel with the commutes I had. The electric vehicle I was looking at was fun to drive, and it would cost me about $4 a week in electricity to do all of the same driving. Now, I still have this electric vehicle, and I still experience that same cost. If I have to recharge at a station, it costs me $1.98 to go to get, I think, close to 400 kilometers, whatever that is in miles, in distance and range with this vehicle. However, as fun as it was to drive, the first drive I did, which was no longer really than 15 minutes, that didn't really cause me any problems. But once I broke that time and I spent another, I think it was about 30 minutes driving around, I started to get a headache. I felt nauseous. I kind of was experiencing vertigo. My wife already gets car sick within 2 minutes of driving in the car. On all occasions, she was like, "Oh my goodness, I'm feeling like dizzy. I got vertigo. I'm not feeling good." So at this point, I'd already committed and purchased the car. And then I realized I was sitting on top of this giant battery with this massive iPad essentially mounted on the dashboard, staring me in the face. And it was really only when I installed our EMF protection device under the screen, it's a little small one. Actually, this is the size of it right here. Only when I installed this one under the screen that I actually got rid of those symptoms. And even my wife, who's super sensitive, no longer had those problems either. So I knew at that point, despite the engineers at the car company telling me that there's no way it emits electromagnetic fields, seems a little bit confusing considering the fact that it has built-in 5G. But I knew at that moment that the only way around these issues was going to be to protect myself from this. Now, for those of you, because I actually get calls when I last talked about this, I got people asking me, would I buy an electric car again? My answer is probably no. I likely would go with a hybrid. Just because when it comes down to long distance traveling, this becomes a problem of constantly stopping and charging. For like driving around the city, even for a day trip, I'm good. But like if I have to travel somewhere, it is kind of a nightmare. And I wouldn't really necessarily want to risk what subtle energies I'm being exposed to. Some of these batteries are huge and they sit all underneath the floor of the car, right? Because the front of the car is empty. So you're sitting on top of the battery. So my concerns there, would I potentially not do it? I possibly wouldn't do it again. Yeah, so someone said 6 hours in a rental that's not even full electric, just more so than your normal truck, was awful for you. Almost like jet lag for 2 days. Exactly, right? It's pretty concerning for sure. It really does. It bothers me and worries me a lot. And I will definitely not be doing that again unless I literally have no choice. So anyway, my personal experience with electric cars, at least we solved the problem, but wow, was it shocking going from a standard gas SUV to this. All right, so 5G. No one wants to hear about 5G. 5G is this kind of awful, dreaded nightmare thing. It's like something out of a dystopian movie, but it's real. And the 5th generation is what it's called, wireless network, is I mean, is it the latest? We'll talk about that in a bit, but it's kind of the latest and most current generation of mobile technologies that the industry is rallying behind. And it's being promoted as a way to create faster internet and streaming services, to provide better cell phone coverage, and even to bring the idealized future of smart homes and smart cities into existence. Now, unlike the 4G technology that is currently used on even the oldest phones, which is kind of these 90-foot cell towers you see with like all these antenna ports on each, 5G uses these small cell facilities that have over 100 little antennas on them. It's thought to be up to 100 times faster than 4G, and it's capable of supporting at least 100 billion devices. 5G relies mostly on the powerful high band frequencies that use millimeter waves to support connectivity. Sources report that millimeter waves frequencies run between 3 gigahertz and 300 gigahertz, okay? This is an astronomically higher level than the human body was designed to handle, right? I think I always get confused with these here, but I'm going to say it's 1,000,000 times the frequencies we're meant to handle. If 7 hertz is our normal, then you're multiplying it by 1,000 and then multiplying it again to get even to 1 gigahertz, right? So this is a huge difference for our cells to handle. And while this works well for keeping us all connected, I can't imagine if everyone here remembers dial-up internet, I can't imagine we'd be doing a Zoom meeting where I'm connected to people all around the world on dial-up. What it doesn't do is it doesn't do much for the health of our bodies. And research indicates that millimeter waves are absorbed by the skin up to a few millimeters deep, meaning they're getting into the cells in the body about as far as a tattoo needle does. So these cells are being exposed and, of course, moving around the body as well. So 5G and immunity. So every health concern described previously, so all of those things I talked about, the research studies have shown, those research studies were done from before 5G was rolled out, okay? The technology uses the millimeter wave, which operates in the gigahertz range rather than the current megahertz range. And the scary part is that it is already pretty much everywhere in the world. In fact, I think at least 50% of North America is now 5G wherever you go. Scarier still, they're working on 6G. Why not, right? We need it to be even faster than it currently is. Now, this is just a map of the US, I think from it might even be 2017. But look, all of the towers there that you can see and the distance that they cover. Some states are absolutely smothered in them. And it's grown since then because it doesn't stop. It just keeps going. So those are all 5G hotspots at the time of that map being created. So this was the thought process of me pre-holistic health education was, well, if it's this bad, right, surely someone will protect us. Many of us felt the same about the COVID vaccine and all of the other things as well. This is a super common thought, right? We never thought 5G companies would be able to pass 5G into existence so easily. But big companies want this technology, right? Everything to do with social media relies on the internet. And unfortunately, the law is on their side. And this really ticked me off when I saw it. So the Telecommunications Act of 1996 states that regardless of environmental or health effects, no state or local government can regulate the placement of any cell towers. This is the major reason that we are stuck because we are locked into 5G, we are locked into 6G because this antiquated law is still being quoted whenever it comes to people being concerned about it. It physically can't be made illegal because it is a cell tower. And therefore, it's all to do with communications. And there's nothing that anyone can say to stop the companies putting these in where they're needed. This to me is another one of those signs like money talks, right? You know, if you have money, you can make waves. It's the same with the pharmaceutical industry. And again, we'll talk a little bit about our experience with that fairly shortly here. So you'd think with 5G being as fast as it is, and with, you know, if I'm connected to a 5G network, I could probably stream a high definition movie like that, right? There's the Netflix app and all of those things if you watch those. You can even download these movies. You can download video games. You can download whatever it may be. Things that used to require physical discs to be able to carry that information on can now be downloaded in minutes to our phones, to our iPads, computers, whatever it may be. So do we really need it to be faster than that? Well, apparently, yes. 6G networks are in the works. And again, there's nothing we can do about them. That stupid law is still in place. It's still stuck there. 6G is the successor to 5G. And 6G networks will be able to use higher frequencies than 5G networks. Remember, 5G typically use 6 gigahertz. Okay, so there you go. There's your translation. 6 gigahertz is 3 billion hertz. 3 billion. Billion with a B. So compare that to 7 hertz, right? You're thinking, how many times is that more, right? How much more intense is that? And how can our bodies not be affected by it? Now, these 6G networks are supposed to be able to provide substantially higher capacity and much lower latency. We need to get our minutes down to seconds when it comes to downloading our movie. I honestly shudder to think what things are going to be like when the waves increase again, because the increase in autoimmune disease, the increase in chronic pain, the increase in cellular death has just continued to scale and scale and scale as the years have crept on. So what is our EMF solution? Simple, passive, effective, and a little bit of a story behind it as well. So the mechanism, we call our products the flow products. And what you're seeing there is the inside of a personal flow. So one that's been popped open so you can kind of see what it's made up of. So the working of flow can most easily be understood as that of an electronic transformer, okay? It transforms hostile EMF energies into safe and harmonious alternatives, and the energy required for the generation of this field is completely supplied by the radiation present around us right now, meaning it is a totally passive technology. It does not need recharging or plugging in or any of those things. There is a dose relationship between the intensity of the environmental radiation and the strength of the flow field. So what this means is the worse the radiation, the bigger the field gets of protection, because the more energy it converts. So Flow was a product, it's a product developed out of Europe, and they were actually originally in Holland, okay? In 2016, Flow was becoming a very big company in Holland. They were being prescribed by hundreds of doctors. Remember, electromagnetic hypersensitivity is a very recognized condition in Europe and in Australia as well. The same thing was happening. And it was kind of prescribed as an answer to the client's persistent health issues. And things were looking good here. The telecommunications company, though, forced them out in absolutely spectacular fashion. And the company strategically shut down, pulled the products from the market, and reopened a few months later. And I think they moved from Holland to the Netherlands. But essentially, they were getting too big for their britches, which is something we always are concerned about as well with microcurrent, is at what point does the pharmaceutical industry point its lasers at us, right? So integration into cell phones in Canada, this is kind of our experience. At this point in time, we were working with Flow because of a patient experience we had, and I'll share that shortly here. But the largest cellular company in Canada, who I'm not allowed to mention by name, just due to legal issues, decided that they were going to integrate Flow technology into their phones. Now, obviously, you can imagine how big of a deal this was for us, how big of a deal this was for Flow. So rather than requiring people to purchase these things and put them on their phones, this company was going to install them inside every single phone. They were the first cell phone company to care about this. And we were actually like super excited. This would have been a game changer. I probably would be retired on a beach somewhere right now if this had actually gone through. But despite all the months of work going into this, when it came down to bringing it to market, the lawyers of the telecom companies stepped in and blocked it. And again, we can't mention the company by name for legal reasons, but essentially, here was the reasoning. If they start installing these in cell phones, they are acknowledging that the cell phone technology up to that point was dangerous. And in acknowledging that that technology was dangerous, they would no longer be able to protect themselves from any medical lawsuits that might come up as a result of people that had gotten sick and claimed cell phone radiation was the cause. So all that say, I get why they did it. because they probably would have been crushed by lawsuits at that point. But it wasn't something we'd really considered. And even the rep we were working with was really interested in helping people. And it seemed like it was going to be a huge end game for what we were able to do. But again, lawyers stepped in, and you can't do that. And again, can't mention the name of the company. And feel free to guess. But yes, they moved out of Holland, they moved out of the Netherlands region, and they sort of had to set up as a response to their previous issues. And that's when we started working with them there as well. Okay, so research. So yes, there is research on flow, and it's kind of hard to do it yourself. You kind of got to look at what they've got going on there. Our solution is a passive electronic device, okay, which absorbs harmful radiation and alters the radiation to a healthy body-friendly level. Flow research until now mostly consisted of something we call live blood analysis, where blood was analyzed under a dark field microscope to see the reaction of blood cells exposed to cell phones with the flow attached and without the flow attached. Now, the results here showed significant clumping in the blood of the person using the phone, which meant the cells were stuck and unable to function and flood through the body. Now, this was when they did not have the device attached to their phone. And the blood then, when the device was attached to their phone and they were holding it in their hand, the blood would start to flow normally and freely again. However, recent research was done using a different testing method to measure radiation in both 3G and 4G and 5G environments. The reason for this was when flow was created, 4G was kind of there, and every other EMF protection device was scrambling to upgrade to match 5G. They need to increase this to do this because they're all about absorbing or doing something else instead of changing. And so even though in theory we were like, well, it should work just the same, in fact, it should just make the field of the flow stronger and bigger. We needed to prove that. And I asked them about that. They had to get a university involved in actually doing the measurements because they needed special equipment to measure it. So radiation measurements were performed particularly here on the home flow unit, which is the system for the whole house. These results showed a significant reduction in radiation. Readings were taken without the home flow present and then with it present and assembled. There's 5 pieces that have to go in different areas around the house. The conclusion was that the home flow set dampens and reduces radiation by approximately 75% around wireless signals of 2.4 gigahertz and 85% in higher frequencies, up to 3 gigahertz. This means that in 5G, just as we expected, it performed better than it did in the lower energy outputs because, again, it's a passive technology reliant on the radiation that is around it. So what have we got on these ones here? So this is kind of a reduction showing the different reductions as your megahertz increase, right? So more of a reduction, the higher the frequencies get. And this was with one of the other products, the flow station, and another product called the screen flow. The higher the frequencies exposed, the more effective the device was at damping that electricity. So comparing it to other systems, how did that go? Well, throughout last year and the year before that, I do a little bit of a deep dive into this. I looked at a handful of other products as well, some shown to us by reps. People will Google, find EMF protection devices, reach out and say, hey, we sell something and we think it's better, as well as others shared by clients that wanted to compare them too. And while I would love to share direct comparisons on here, I was told not to do so because we don't want to be slandering any particular brands. So I can't talk about it directly on here. But despite offers to start promoting those products instead of Flow, I can honestly say that I do still believe that Flow is superior. It is something that, I hadn't really noticed when I moved into my house. I used to, before I purchased my own home about 3 and a bit years ago, I lived with my parents when I was in school. My family and I lived there. And so we had a home flow system forever. And I didn't even think about getting my own system when I moved into the house. And it turns out that I have a smart hub in my house because it's a new build. So in the downstairs closet is actually this big cabinet that you open up. And in the cabinet is all of these things that essentially port the Wi-Fi through different plugs that are in every room in the house. So scary stuff. I didn't see that coming. And I definitely had some digestive issues. I had a lot of problems. I felt really sick the first 2 to 4 weeks of moving into my house. I hadn't really even thought about it. I did then, we got a home flow for me and I went to set it up and then I just didn't get around to it. And it was only when I did set it up that those symptoms seemed to go away as well. I have had other systems given to me. I've had other products given to me. A lot of them absorb the signals. Now, if you know anything about physics, an object can only store so much before it is full, right? So when it comes to actually absorbing EMFs, these things actually then end up becoming a source of EMFs because they can't be destroyed. Energy cannot be destroyed, right? It can only be absorbed or transformed. So the concept of flow transforming the waves is still a very novel idea compared to a lot of these other systems as well. But beyond the research, because some people just want to know if it actually works, we have been using and promoting these units for years. As I said at the beginning of this video, about once a year, maybe twice if I get the opportunity, I divert a little bit from microcurrent and I talk about a few different things. And flow is one of those things. I think I last talked about it January of last year. So really, countless patients suffering from all sorts of conditions find out that EMF sensitivity was one of the root components of their issues. And when EMF sensitivity becomes resolved, the symptoms essentially abate. So one of the first successes with the Flow products was our patient, Anne. Now, Anne was a patient of my parents before my time, but I do remember seeing her actually clinically, not myself, but seeing her as I was walking by. I don't think I was allowed to be there at the time. But Anne was a patient who had come to see us after a diagnosis of arthritis, and all signs here pointed towards rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disease that causes the swelling and inflammation of the joints in different parts of the body. Anne followed everything to a T, but nothing seemed to touch her condition. And it was only when Anne went on vacation that she noticed a change. So she was doing all of the rest of the protocols that we had asked her to do. Now, Anne actually went to New Zealand, and for this time when she was there, she was surprised that her symptoms kind of went away. She reported that through email that she was doing much better. The swelling had all but gone away, and she was feeling that she had much, much more energy. So an increase in physical energy as well. We attributed this to stress. Again, right? That stress is a big deal. We know it is. Maybe the vacation just took away that stress. But when Anne returned to the US after being away for 2 weeks, she was ready to get her life back on track. But within 2 days of her return, the hopes were dashed because she was contacting us again. Her swelling was returning, first in her hands and feet. And she was like, what the heck is going on? So it came to us having to try and figure out why, right? We started to look at her environment. And the first thought was kind of like, maybe, right? Maybe it's mold. We know that people that live in moldy environments have these reactions. Maybe by getting out of that negative environment, she was getting healthier. But she lived in an apartment building in New York, kind of on the upper stories. And you can imagine the EMFs she was exposed to, right? A big city with all these wireless hotspots and everything kind of pumping out all over the place. So within 3 days of getting the personal flow, which is the model you carry around with you, and swelling had reduced considerably. By the time 7 days had passed, she was almost 100% swelling free. So Anne ultimately purchased the complete home flow system to essentially shield herself and her family from EMF exposure. And this is all it took to give her back her life and her freedom, was to neutralize the exposure to electromagnetic fields. And still to this day, it's interesting to see patients that come to us that have gotten 50, 60% of the way better, and getting the flow products knocks the rest of it out. Because I think there's so much underlying stress on the body from a disease, from chronic pain, from chronic inflammation, that it weakens our immune system, it weakens our cells, and it allows us to kind of build up these issues once again. So let's talk about the products themselves. We already talked about the mechanism behind them, and they're in varying different shapes depending on what they are intended to be used for. Now, there are 5 different flow products in mind, and then there's also flow drops as well, which are kind of a homeopathic remedy. We'll talk about those in a minute here. Now, these products have been designed to deal with different sources of EMFs, and ultimately, what is it that you're trying to achieve? So the first one is the mobile flow. You can see this stuck to the back of my phone here. It's like a little gold square. So the mobile flow, it sticks to your phone case, on my phone case, or your phone directly, and it can be removed with I use a butter knife to remove it. It's really sticky, so it continues to stick. Now, to me, this is especially important for our youth because they spend so much time. The average is 9 hours a day using their phones. For me, it's important as well because I use my phone a lot for work. And so I need to be on it. I'm texting, I'm on calls with people. So it's important to kind of mitigate those things as well. This is by far and away the cheapest option of the flow products, but it is something that can make a big difference for a very small investment. The screen flow, I have that guy right here. The screen flow is the one that's to be used typically with computers, laptops, tablets, smartphones, televisions. You place it near it, you leave it there. It absorbs the EMFs from the screens as it's coming out, and it resonates and changes them. Remember, they're an antenna. They take these things in, they radiate it out. I place my screen flow. I have one right here next to my screen. I have one next to my child's screen. I have one on my TV because I know that these are areas that I was concerned about. These can be a permanent fixture, or you can pick them up and bring them with you wherever you go. This is the one I also have in my electric car. Not this particular one. I have a screen flow in my electric car as well. So you can kind of move these around. They have the stand that's optional, whether you want it or not. I actually taped this to the back of my son's screen so he wouldn't lose it because I didn't think leaving it there was a good idea. The personal flow, this one comes in 2 different sizes. We got the medium personal flow, which is slightly fatter, and the skinny, small personal flow here. These are portable protection from all electromagnetic fields. The unit here is designed to be carried on your person. Used to be called the pocket flow. Stick it in your pocket and walk away. But essentially, it protects you from the environment outside your home. So you either use it in your home or you bring it with you outside your home, wherever you want to go. Why are there 2 different sizes? When Flow first created the products, it was just one size. But the observations were that women tended to get headaches using the bigger one more frequently than if they had a slightly smaller one. Now, this does not seem to matter on body size, and it's not an all the time thing. I think that's like 1 in 10 people or something like that. But in those cases, using the smaller size resolved it. It doesn't matter on body size. It doesn't matter on height. I've had people that have said to me before, like, well, I'm a big woman, right? And so maybe I should use the one designed for men. I think it's actually a hormonal thing more than it is a size thing, because it doesn't seem to matter whether it's a larger woman or a child or whatever it is. Like, it doesn't matter on size. It matters on gender. So it has to be hormonal. But yes, you can carry this one with you wherever you go. The home flow set is a big system, okay? It's 5 different pieces. I keep one of them in my office here. I'll just show you the size of it here. This is one piece of the home flow. You can see how big that is there. It sits in the corner of my office. The other piece is in a different part of the house. And then those 3 other pieces, these go on different areas where EMFs enter the home. Water tanks, your electric meter and things like that. This system essentially converts the electromagnetic radiation from devices in and around your home into that natural body frequency. It does it on a very large scale as well. I have yet to meet someone, aside from one lady who owned an apartment building, that had a space too big for one home flow to cover. The home flow system will provide protection for up to 10,000 square feet. So that's a lot of space. Someone that has a home that's bigger than that, you might need to purchase more than one unless you only care about a certain part of the home. This person with the apartment, I think they had an apartment building and they did 2. Now, these do work for apartment buildings and condos as well. You don't have to have a full home to deal with them, but there is an option that's cheaper and more effective for these smaller spaces as well, and that is the Flow Station. This is the newest product from Flow, And it was designed because they had so many people asking them for a portable version that could be brought with them when they're camping or traveling, rather than packing up 5 pieces and bringing them with them. So this is like a single antenna. It's about half the size. It does roughly 1,000 to 1,500 square feet. That's kind of like on the outside. I'd say 1,000 is a very good guess as to what it's going to cover, a very safe number. So for people dealing with condos, apartments, or who just want to bring it with them on vacation, stay in hotel rooms and things like that, this is a good option as well. Think of it like a portable home flow. That's the way that it's being described to me. It's an all-in-one tower though, right? So you don't have to have all the different pieces. Not as much coverage, but perfect for apartments, condos, single floors of houses. You have a flow station on one and then you bring it to the next floor where you go. And then the flow drops. So something that I never really used to consider is the flow drops. And they have truly worked miracles with people that struggle with electromagnetic fields. When the human body is in an environment that contains these significant levels of radiation, it has been shown through studies on plants that subtle physical energies can be disturbed. Flow drops are actually formulated to protect the integrity of the structure of the cells in your body, which are constantly challenged by non-ionizing radiation. These are what we call a bioresonance drop. This is essentially a way of us being able to name them something that is not going to attract too much attention. They work on kind of a non-homeopathic basis by delivering multi-bioresonant equivalences. The goals here are positive frequencies that resonate at the level of the invading frequency and cancel them out. So we recommend flow drops for people who are saturated with EMFs and who need to detox, or people that find that they get frequent migraine headaches. Some people will find that they are already electrically sensitive. You may know that right now. You may say that picking up your phone makes you feel off, watching TV makes you feel off. You just know you're EMF sensitive. I think I saw some people in the chat saying that they just can't exist. Flow drops are one of those options. You start slow, 1 drop a day. You work your way up until you've completed the whole bottle. But the goal is to get your cells detoxed of these EMFs so that they can start enjoying the positive EMFs of the flow, of the earth, of everything, instead of being oversaturated yet again. People that don't purchase flow drops and then end up not feeling great, because it's possible when you use the personal flow specifically, because you're carrying it so close to your body, that if you are extremely EMF sensitive, this might give you a headache. And the reason is because your body is now suddenly gone from listening to 3 billion hertz to trying to listen to 7 hertz, and it doesn't know how to deal with that. When you detox with the flow drops, those symptoms go away. And then people are able to enjoy that kind of body-friendly effect from all of it. Let's see here. We got a lot of questions. We're going to answer those soon here. I think this is the last slide anyway. Yeah. All right. So how do you get the flow products? Are you giving any offers on them? For sure. Absolutely. So you can go to the normal link for our in-house webinars, which is thesanashop.com/HP. So let me just show you where that is. It's on the top of the screen here. thesanashop.com/HP. HP is for Hash protocol, not the sauce you put on steaks. But there you go. And so if you head on over there, you'll see the products are on there. They are automatically, different prices depending on the products, they are automatically discounted further from the prices you see by 15%. The code will apply at checkout, knocking more money off. I don't have all the prices on the screen because there's 5 products, and I was like, if I try and fit them all, it's going to be really cluttered. But they range from $50 to like $1,500 for like the whole home flow set. The flow station is somewhere in the 1,000 range, and then like the screen flow I think is about 150. It's somewhere, it floats in that range depending on what you're trying to achieve. But remember, these devices last forever. They are passive electronic. If you drop one of these in the toilet, has it happened? Yes, it happens a lot. People drop our stuff in the toilet all the time. If you drop one in the toilet or you drop it in some water or something, you're wondering if it still works, shake it. If you hear water inside of it, put it in some rice and see if you can get that water out. But if you hear the water in it, it's probably damaged. I think it's happened once or twice. Most of the time, these are waterproof. Someone asked the question here, I'm sort of half answering that now, but how long is the lifetime/effective time of the different stations? These should be for life. If there's damage to them, they will work to try and repair them, but these are very robust passive technologies. Remember, the battery of these is the EMFs around us. So the only time these are going to stop working is if we hit some sort of oasis-like future where we no longer have to deal with EMFs anywhere. The more EMFs that people pump out, the stronger the flow field gets, the better effect we get from it. That is the kind of crazy science that we see with it, which I absolutely love that. So essentially, the more they throw at us, the more protection we get. Okay, let me see. We got some questions here. Oh, these offers are valid until February 14th, so at midnight Pacific time, so end of Valentine's Day there, I think. Oh, that's coming up soon. I have to figure that out for my wife. Automatically discount applies at checkout as well. So you got a week if you want to take advantage of these at discounted prices. The products, the screen flow, the personal flow, the mobile flow, and the flow drops, these all ship directly from us. If you order a flow station or a home flow, we get these shipped from the manufacturer. The reason is they're such big boxes. They will cost us so much more to ship than it costs them. The downside to that is that there is a small customs fee for people in the States and Canada that will be on top of the home flow. It's usually around $50. Don't quote me on that. But they put a reduced value on it when they send it and everything. If you get charged a fee, don't be too surprised if that happens. That will not happen on the screen flow, personal flow, mobile flow, flow drops, because we import those in big batches and we ship them out from here. Okay, so yeah, that's how that works. You go to that link, you use that discount, and you can access the products. Now, on to questions, because that's what everyone really wants to know. They want to get all their questions answered. I'm going to scroll back through chat here, and let's see. There is some questions on Facebook as well. Do not worry, everyone. I will get all your questions answered. We are here until we're done, or until an hour, I think, is probably where I'll cap it off there. But I just got to scroll back through the chat and find that here as well. That's where I left off reading the chat. Yes, there will be a replay after the event is over. It'll go out tomorrow. Wow, I wasn't totally aware of all the risks and the facts. Yeah, I know, it's crazy, isn't it? There's things that you kind of know that there is some downside to electromagnetic fields. You know it in your gut, but there's a lot of stuff that I think I see a lot of concern with. Kids nowadays as well glued to their iPads, right? And we wonder why they have eye issues early on. The cells in their eyes can't handle all that EMF radiation. Yeah, as Angelica said here, these companies, they lie, right? And that's part of the issue too. They get away with a lot of things. Okay, so looking for questions. No one is saying how the EV charging stations are powered, presumably by fossil fuels. I know, like, where we live, everything is hydrogen power, so they are powered by hydrogen. However, one of the things I don't like about them is that we kind of sit in them when we're charging them. So all this energy is getting blasted into these batteries, and then we kind of sit there waiting in the car, because unlike filling up a car with gas, which may take you like 2 to 3 minutes, charging up your car with a fast charge station even here is 15 to 20 minutes. So you're sitting there waiting. Otherwise, what do? You stand in the rain and wait, or hopefully you can go find shelter in a building while it charges up. So there's definitely some holes in all that, right? Okay. Will my slides be available to print out? You can ask for the slides from Lynn or from our support email, and we usually are willing to share them. Yes, if you want to share them with people. All right. Okay, so true. The electric charging outlets are electricity. Other problems are power outages, grid down. A few weeks ago, people were stranded in Chicago. Cold weather has bad effects on charging capabilities. I had an issue. I'm sure we'll get to questions about the flow product soon. These are some earlier comments on here. I had an issue. I was picking up my brother from Down Island. We live on Vancouver Island in BC. I was picking him up for Christmas, and I took my car because I didn't have a choice. That was the only vehicle I had access to. I took the car. By the time I made it an hour and a half out of town, my 300-kilometer battery range was nearly dead, and we were only 100 kilometers away. So it lies about that too, because it doesn't do highway driving well. So we got there and then we were like, okay, let's try. I picked him up and I said, I got to stop and charge. It'll be 20 minutes, then we'll be on the way home. Well, the map in the car, it tracks charging stations. It sent me to the nearest charging station. It was out of service. So we spent about an hour searching the town looking for another charging station that was actually fast and would get us charged up. We finally found one, had to wait in a line for 30 minutes, got it charged up, and made it back, and the battery nearly died again. So there's certainly some big changes, and obviously, as I said, my passion for my electric vehicle has deteriorated over the years for sure, because there's a lot of concerns about it too. Someone says I had an adverse effect to 4G, and I need to live in a copper room. Oh, sorry to hear that, Patrice. Yeah, it's even 4G, right? And I mean, so now when you're dealing with 5G, where's that going from? What's the mobile flow made out of? The outside casing of the mobile flow is kind of like a brass. Oh, realize I'm not holding it up. It's kind of like a brass. The others, I think, are steel, because I know that they had a big issue with the pricing of steel, and it increased the prices, and they normally have to increase them in March every year because the price of steel keeps going up as well. Drops will be great. Yeah, the drops are awesome. I didn't used to think too much of them, and we actually didn't even bother keeping them in stock and not even have them on the website. But when it came down to people, the rare people being like, I don't feel good, like, I started using this and now I'm kind of feeling crummy. It was like, well, what's the answer? Well, the flow would be like, well, did you give them the flow drops? And it's like, no. And then I was like, well, yeah, maybe you should use the flow drops, see what happens. And I have people call me back and say, that worked perfectly. I can use these things now. And I was actually kind of shocked, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's a great resource. Even if people are just EMF sensitive, I like to recommend they get the flow drops and go through a course of that to help them in general. Would flow drops be used only temporarily or on an ongoing basis? Awesome question. So typically we use it temporarily at the beginning of the process. So the hope is that you'll get your flow drops and you'll get a personal flow or a home flow, whatever. And then once you've detoxed out your cells, this will keep your cells from being saturated again, and you won't have to use them again. If you don't have EMF protection like this in place, you may need to use the drops more often. I think it's more worth just protecting yourself and detoxing yourself with the flow drops once. Excuse me. So I see, hi Rob, sorry I was late. It took me nearly an hour to sign in. I've not used Zoom for several months. I had to sign into Zoom to upgrade my Zoom. Well, nice to see you, Marco. I totally get that as well. That happens to me sometimes. I go to sign into Zoom and then it's like, you need to update it. And I'm like, I've got 5 minutes to somehow update this, then remember my login again and get in. Yeah. Someone says, I tend towards constipation with the flow drops by me more. Not in my experience, no. It shouldn't cause like constipation, diarrhea, or anything like that. I answered the question of how long is the lifetime/effective time of the different stations. Can flow drops be given to pets? I've had people use all of the flow products on pets. I have ladies that have stuck a mobile flow to their dog's collars and cats' collars. There's a pouch that I've seen on horses where they'll put like a pouch around their neck with the personal flow in it. And yes, there's nothing that I could say that would be bad about using flow drops on pets. Some people use headphones to stay away from their phone. Is Bluetooth just as bad from an EMF perspective? Yes. See, that's part of the problem. Even hearing aids, right? These are now Bluetooth. They tap into Bluetooth stuff. In my experience, it is just as bad. Bluetooth's not as bad as wireless. And if I had to choose between headphones and sticking this source of radiation right next to my brain, then headphones are by far going to be weaker than that. So definitely a better choice, but it's still causing issues. So I wouldn't say it's just as bad, but from an EMF perspective, it certainly is causing issues there as well. Okay, so what do you say here? So do you mean if I spend 6 months in the high mountain wilderness, the personal flow will no longer be active? There's like a lower range. So like I think it will reduce exposed personal flows by like 20% or something, like exposed EMS by like 20% at really weak levels. And then the worse off things get, the stronger they get. But just like if you went out into the wilderness and you didn't get a signal on a radio, just like coming back into civilization and getting a signal on a radio will come back on, right? The personal flow will start working again. Think of them like an antenna. They are taking in a frequency, they are vibrating, and they're sending out a new signal. I love that the flows are designed to stop working when the problem for which they are designed no longer exists. That's genius. Yeah, and it's all this old radio technology, right? Sid, I think it's really fascinating because it's not that they're necessarily designed to stop working, it's that they depend on the bad stuff to work to replace it, right? If there's no bad stuff around, why would they resonate? Why would they change the natural stuff? Speaking of what Rhodes just said about 6 months in the high mountain wilderness, that sounds like an absolute dream, just to get away from things. Does this interfere with the natural desirable frequencies? No, that's the great thing, because the natural desirable frequencies are the harmonics, the Schumann resonances. They're the low frequencies. And this is bringing those nasty frequencies and turning them down to natural desirable frequencies. So your body can start to absorb those. But I've had this question before as well. If you're using your microcurrent device and you're inputting frequencies into your body and they're good frequencies, does using the flow counteract that? No. Does using the flow counteract low EMFs? No. It's more, it might add some extra harmonics to you, which would stabilize your cells. And I didn't mention this in the presentation. I thought I did, but keep in mind that when you're dealing with stuff like the electromagnetic fields, you're looking at kind of this constant battery around you of all of these things, and being able to pull it down to that low level is what keeps your body healing. In astronaut programs in NASA, in shuttles, they actually have a Schumann resonance generator to pump out EMFs, because when you get that far away from the Earth, suddenly you're being bombarded by these horrible frequencies because you're not near where your cells want to be. So they actually need to include these Schumann resonance generators in space stations, or the cells in your body start to break down. Your bones will actually deteriorate without access to those healthy frequencies. That's the level of frequency that you're creating with these flow products. I sent this question earlier by email. Does the Sana Health Blanket protect against external EMFs like a Faraday cage? It's not like a Faraday cage, no. It doesn't. It's not going to it will protect you to a degree by keeping the internal frequencies of your body in and reflected on you, but it won't protect you from overwhelmingly large amounts of frequencies beyond the fact that your body has a tendency to listen to its own harmonious field. And when the blanket is projecting that back on itself, it's listening to that. It's sort of like all of this noise out around us, and your body is covering its ears and saying, "I'm not paying attention to this." That's kind of more what it's doing than the flow would be doing. Can I take the item through airport security? Yeah, I've never had any problems, anyone carrying these on airlines or anything like that. Maybe a stupid question, but are there any interactions to the drops? Not, it's not a stupid question at all. And I don't think I've ever had anyone tell me that they had a negative interaction with the drops at all. So I wouldn't be concerned about that. How does the flow compare to the Qi technology? Like our scalar Qi and stuff? Well, I mean, essentially it's scalar. It's sort of similar to creating a scalar field for yourself out of EMF. Scalar brings things down to zero though, versus the like 783 kind of Schumann level, which is kind of that key healing frequency. Does it interfere with Wi-Fi use? No, I mean, I've not had it interfere with Wi-Fi use at all. I had one person one time, crazy, told me that the moment they put the mobile flow on their cell phone stopped working. And I knew it was impossible that was the case. I've never had anyone else say that. I think that they just decided they didn't want them. But yeah, so anyway, that was after, by the way, it immediately stopped working after they had it for 3 months. That's what they said. So I'm not sure why it took that long for them to tell me. But I've never had it interfere with Wi-Fi use or anything like that. That's the glorious thing, right? If you're trying to block out Wi-Fi, like I have Wi-Fi, as I said, it's wired into my house and pulsing everywhere. I can't imagine how much worse it was. I can't even remember how much worse it was prior to getting my flow system set back up and no longer having to really be concerned about all of that. How about using scalar waves to help mitigate EMF? So there you go. So scalar, yeah, as we're dealing with scalar, it can bring the EMFs down and it can resonate and reset our bodies. But unless we're constantly pumping scalar into our bodies, these levels, just like as a scalar zeroes things out and it starts to raise back up, these levels will continue to climb, right? They're going to come back up and then they're going to start getting exposed again to it. So unless you're continuously scalaring yourself, this is a way of keeping those energy levels down in the body. If you put your phone with ScreenFlow next to your device, would it be effective in reducing any EFT of the device? So if you put your phone and a ScreenFlow next to the device, like with like the mobile flow attached to it as well, I don't know. I'm not really sure. I think I'm misunderstanding what you're saying actually there. So clarify that for me and I'll answer it. You haven't mentioned routers. I have a meter that shows the EMF from the router is way higher than anything else in my house. My husband has a router on his desktop for 10 years before he died of a brain tumor. Oh, I'm sorry. PubMed studies show EMFs can cause brain tumors, and most of us have these routers in our homes, so it seems worth mentioning. See, when you're looking at something like the home flow, for example, you end up kind of shielding your entire house. When you're dealing with the routers, one thing can be, and I've had people put the screen flow in front of the router. I think that's better than a mobile flow because the mobile flow is the mobile. People have also asked a similar question, but about the mobile flow. They say, well, do I need a mobile flow if I have a personal flow? My thought is yes. Why is my thought yes? Well, because if I'm constantly sitting here like this, whether I have protection around me or not, I am taking this source of EMFs and I'm putting it right next to my brain all the time. Even if I'm like this and I'm watching my phone or I'm texting, I've got EMFs really close to it. So I like to intercept the EMFs right at the source with the mobile flow. It's probably one of the most important ones for that reason alone. Now, as far as the routers go, I don't have a router because of I was going to say the stupid smart home. I put one of my pieces of my own flow inside the smart box in the house, knowing that all stuff that's being intercepted there is being weakened, and therefore it's not going around that. But yes, if you had a router, putting a screen flow next to it would be beneficial. I'm just trying to pull up my Facebook again on here because I closed it when I picked it up, and now I need to make sure I'm answering the questions on there as well, right? So keep asking those questions, guys. We'll continue to get through that. Okay. Let's see. Would it make a difference if in the vehicle the flow is on the console or hanging from the mirror? I don't think it necessarily would. I was really cautious with I wanted it right underneath the screen. And I knew the battery was underneath me. And so I wanted it to kind of be there. I figured that was the highest point of EMF exposure. Will the personal one work in the vehicle? Does it need to be a screen flow? Personal one is really just a bigger screen flow. So I think you'll be fine to use the personal one. I carry a personal flow on me and have for years. I also have a home flow. If I have the personal flow on me, shouldn't that also protect me from my phone and computer? You are right, yes. The personal, and I answered that question about the mobile flow. My mobile flow theory stands. As far as the screens go, if you're keeping a personal flow on you, yes, you yourself and around 4 to 6 feet around you are protected from the screen. The discount code EMF doesn't appear to work to take additional money off. That's not good. Let me check for you. So you're saying, is there anything you're doing wrong? Now, the discount code should automatically apply. So it might not let you type it in again. I'm just going to go in here. I'm going to just shop on my phone really quick. Add one of these to cart. So then when you go to cart, the price, yeah. So when you go to cart, the price will be further decreased automatically. So it's not a code that you can type in. It'll automatically apply it there. The reason I said it that way is because if people use PayPal, it doesn't let them type in discount codes. But if it automatically applies, it should do it. So you kind of see underneath and this is, my phone's in Canadian dollars because I'm in Canada, but you'll kind of see underneath the price. Let me just show here. Underneath the price there, it says discount EMF. $12.45 because it's taking 15% off. So it does work there. If you continue to have problems, please email support and we'll be happy to send you an invoice for what you want. No problem. So remember that link is thesanashop.com/HP. Let's keep going with our questions here. I'm going to ask people as well, if you wouldn't mind, if you've got questions, could you put the questions in Zoom now in the Q&A box instead of the chat? And then I don't have to bounce back and forth. I'm nearly done here. I get hearing aids in 2 weeks. What should I do? Well, if your hearing aids are Bluetooth, I would recommend you get either a personal flow so you can carry it with you, or you can do a combo. You can use a screen flow as kind of a weaker personal flow. It doesn't have as big of a radius, but it kind of protects you. It's cheaper. It's about half the price. But I would just recommend carrying one of those on you, and then you should be fine. You should be fine for sure. Oh, use the wrong flow. I meant to say if you have a mobile flow on your phone and place your phone next to your device, will the mobile flow nearby reduce any EMF? To a degree, the mobile. Okay, thank you for rephrasing your question there because it makes more sense now. So the mobile flow has about this much of protection. So it will protect things to a degree in this small area, enough that it will stop it piercing your brain badly, but not enough to create a bigger area. The antenna in the mobile flow is actually flush to this. So it's actually flush to that. So when you think about the antenna size, this is probably 10 times the size of the mobile flow antenna. So it's just not designed for, we want to keep it fairly thin. It's like the size of 2 pennies stacked on top of each other. Yes, there's definitely time to add. Thank you, Sid. So yeah, I'm gonna turn to the Q&A box now and look at those questions for you, no problem. All right, so question here, can a personal flow be worn when using the grounding bundle, like the mitochondrial recharge grounding bundle? Yes, absolutely can be. The first question came out was Miriam saying, Rob, does Pain Free for Life have any blood work or biomarker studies to support what you may say is truly protective against EMFs? Yeah, so I showed some of the studies there in the slides, and I think on our mobile flow sales page, potentially, is the video of the live blood analysis. If it's not, it's on our YouTube channel. But if you want to see that video, go ahead and reach out to us, and I'll see if I can dig it up and send it over to you. Can this recording be shared with other people? My dentist is interested. Oh, absolutely, yeah. So when you get the replay, you'll be able to share the link out from there. It'll go out tomorrow. I was wondering what effect your device would have on other EMF protection devices. How do several different devices mix? It's funny, every EMF protection company says, don't use my device with someone else's device because then my device won't work. Flow doesn't usually say that. This is operating on a fairly unique thing, right? It's not blocking EMFs, it's working with them. Now, not many devices claim to do that. They claim to block. When you truly block, think about this. If a device is claiming that it blocks EMFs and your device continues to work, then it's not blocking EMFs. Someone mentioned like a Faraday cage, right? Wi-Fi should not work in a Faraday cage. If the device that is attached to your phone is supposed to block EMFs, and in fact, you can still use the wireless internet on your phone, or even make phone calls, then it's not truly blocking it. Because if it blocked it, the signals wouldn't be going in and out. This is a harmonious option. This is meant to allow us to essentially live in the technology, knowing that we kind of are stuck with it and be able to function normally. So the Flow has never told me that no, if you use our devices, you shouldn't use other ones. Whereas I hear a lot of the time, don't use this device with those because then mine won't work anymore. Is it true that quartz crystals intentionally placed as EMF protection would amplify and transmit harmful frequencies? And would laws of energy mean that shungite will absorb EMFs, but eventually get saturated and be an emitter of EMFs? My goodness, Sid, you nailed it there. I'm not entirely sure about the quartz piece, but this has always been my concern with shungite. Shungite gets purported as a way of absorbing EMFs. Now, there's only so much, right? It's an object. There's only so much water that fits in my mason jar here, right? And when this gets filled up, what's going to happen? It's going to start leaking out. So that has always been my concern with shungite. I've been approached by about 10 different companies that make shungite jewelry and say, hey, would you like to promote our products? And my reasoning has always been no, because once it fills up, it's going to start saturating the area with EMFs. And how much they can hold is questionable. It could be a very, very large amount. But with all the exposure we continuously get, that is a big concern of mine for sure. So you kind of hit that on the head there. As far as cleansing the shungite to get rid of contamination, I'm not sure how one would go about doing that. But, in theory, if something can be filled up, it can be emptied. Just be about finding that out, right? I've not really, as far as like crystal positioning and things like that to amplify energy, I've not studied that a huge amount. I've looked at crystals a lot for chakras, and they definitely have some power there. I would just be, making sure if they are going to amplify EMFs, like don't put them next to like a router or something, right? And then, as you say, create a new problem there. How much area does a flow station cover? Would it work in an 1,100 square foot house with zero wireless, minimal cell phone use, and knockdown EMFs? Yep, that would be a good size. But anywhere from between 1,000 to 1,400, 1,500 square feet would be good. If you've got no wireless, you're already kind of setting yourself up for success there as well. But yeah, the flow station is like that mini home flow, right? So it will work on that sort of space. The flow station will be, someone said, if it's the same question again from someone else, if it's a small house, about 1,000 square feet or less, would the flow station be okay? Or a couple of the other ones? I'd say the easiest solution in the case of a small place like that is a flow station, because the flow station could just be picked up and moved around. And it has, you see it in the picture there, it's kind of got like a foam shield on it. The home flow doesn't. I tuck this piece behind my chair. My other one downstairs is behind a cat tree. They have to be placed in specific areas in the house. The instructions are included in the package. But what always terrified me about this was when my child was little, if you fall on this, like, yes, it's not spiky, but it's going to hurt. It could put out an eye or something, right? The foam covered one is A, protecting the flow, but also protecting people from bumping it. It's meant to be more portable. So yes, the flow station is good for that. What would I suggest for two people in a small house so they both could take one with them when leaving the house? If you're not, so I would suggest a flow station to cover the house, because that's just the easy way of going about it. Some people will be fine carrying this around with them, but I'm pretty bad. If I'm going to the bathroom, I'm not going to remember to pick up my personal flow and bring it with me, right? And then if there's no house protection, that is going to impact me to a degree. It's probably not going to kill me, but it's meaning I am exposed in that moment. So what I would say is, if you get the flow station, and if you're looking for the portable protection on the go, mobile flows, and combine it with a screen flow. If you are not EMF sensitive, a screen flow is cheaper than a personal flow and will provide good protection for you yourself. So if you have the mobile flow, your cell phone, if you use a cell phone, then you're protecting yourself there. And the screen flow can slip in your pocket and you can bring it with you. Portable protection at about half the price of a personal flow. The personal flow's advantage is it does provide a bigger area of effect versus like a foot or so. It's like 4 to 6 feet of protection. And it does kind of, for those that are EMF sensitive, the screen flow phone combo probably won't be enough, but I've recommended that combo for a few years now. No, it will not interfere with other devices. I suspect that I experienced debilitating EMF reactions at big international airports and on modern airline jets. Yeah. The odor of jet fuel is so overpowering, even inside the terminal, I can barely function on a plane. Would microwave radiation cause this? I deliberately have no wireless or any modern devices other than my desktop and cell phone use as minimal as possible. Yeah, it's possible that microwave radiation could be affecting the body in that way and really kind of messing it up. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of toxins at airports in general, right? You got to think about all the sanitation they do. So even chemical saturation there could be causing issues. But the interesting piece, and I'm like, why didn't I not cover that in this presentation, is that people that are COVID exposed and mold exposed react very interestingly with EMFs. EMFs tend to suddenly start to bother them. And once you get through that, and you look at the EMF as the reason, and you take that EMF sensitivity away, some of these issues people have from mold toxicity and COVID issues can kind of melt away along with it. It looks like did the EMF discount code protect you start working in the end? Because someone else is asking about it. I've seen people are ordering their Flow products already, so I'm thinking it's probably working. If I go on and check this last person that just ordered, yeah, it did automatically work for them, so it should be working. But if you have problems, let us know for sure. If you use drops, how often do you use them during the day? It's like one a day, and then you build up to a few a day, and the instructions are included in the bottle. But yeah, you kind of it's like once a day. You're not going to have to carry it with you to work or anything. Does this device protect against ELF like 60 hertz? That's an interesting question. I mean, 60 hertz will produce some sort of reduction to a harmonic frequency, but it's not going to be as heavy as the other ones there. Like as if like 6G and stuff, right? Someone said, Dr. Rob, I'm so lucky to know about your super webinars and products. I've been wanting for a long time to actively address EMF exposure. Again, great timing. Flow technology makes huge sense. Energy/nature wants to exist in harmony. Exactly right. Blocking or shielding creates conflict. You do a great job of explaining things. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's really nice of you to say. What about smart meters? One of the pieces of the home flow sticks to your smart meter. That's the big piece. If you're really concerned about smart meters and you get a home flow, there's a piece that zap straps, like zip ties, to to your smart meter. My local Wi-Fi company put something on my roof. I was going to say something rude there, but I won't. I assume it broadcasts and receives. I assume I need protection from that as well as the router. Yeah, so it's some sort of like the home flow, the flow station will provide you that overall protection for your home. That's annoying though that they did that. I can't answer that question. Someone mentioned specifically a different brand. I'm not going to answer that. I don't want to cause conflicts. You start wars with these people sometimes over an innate comment, but just suffice it to say that I've tried, I won't name it on thing. I have tried that before, and I definitely have found that the mobile flow does a much better job of providing protection than that particular product does. That I did it without saying anything mean. Yeah, I'm getting to the questions, Jay, in the Q&A. Don't worry. Does the flow differ technologically from weight? Nearly said that one too. Yes, it does differ technologically from that. I'm going to read these questions before I read them out loud. I think you answered this before, but can you clarify? Will the flow devices still be protected with higher and higher EMF frequencies? Yes. So we weren't wondering. We were sure it would. The tests I showed in this were done on 5G and 4G and showed that with 5G, the wave protection was stronger. We anticipate it will be the same with 6G as well, though it's starting to be rolled out, but very rarely yet. I answered the question about the smart meters as well, 3 in close proximity. So if you get a home flow, for example, there, you'll get your one for your smart meter, but this and its brother piece are what provides a protection of your house. So it will not help your neighbors, but it will help you, and it will kind of protect you from the smart meters of those around you as well. If we get a flow station, what can we do about the smart meter? You know, the flow station will protect from the smart meter. It's like a baby version of this pairing that I keep lifting up. So it's gonna kind of protect in that kind of general bubbly area. So it will provide that level of protection. You know, someone that's overly concerned might think about taking a screen flow as well and zip tying that to it. The pieces of the home flow that go on there, it's just a big screen flow, like a really big one. Can the screen flow be carried around like a personal flow? It can, yep. Some people choose to do that as well. Oh, that meat is outside your bedroom. That's gross. Sorry to hear that. But yeah, no, if you have a home flow or a flow station that's in that area, it will provide you protection from those external ones. When you have mentioned that flow takes the harmful EMFs and makes them positive EMFs, technically speaking, does this mean that the positive ions of man-made EMFs are changed to healthy negative ions? That's a big question. It's not necessarily changing the EMFs as it is changing the frequencies. So it's kind of providing the lower frequencies back to the body. I don't think it really transforms them in that same way, though it is making the frequencies healthier, if that makes sense. That's a big question. Would my EMF meter register a change in a room with one of the devices you showed here? No, that's the problem. If we were to register a change in the room, we would need that technology to be blocked. That would be how we would do that. The strongest signal is always going to be picked up by the meter. That's why they had the university do those studies, was to show the change, but it needed specialized equipment. I can always find out what the equipment is because it may be purchasable by people, but I looked at the papers they sent and the university that did the study for them. Would it register the change? Yeah, it won't register the change because your Wi-Fi is still working, right? And it's still a stronger frequency, so it will pick up on that. Do the flow products add an electron blanket to your skin and surroundings so the EMFs cannot penetrate and cause harm? Not so much. They're changing the frequencies and then they're penetrating the skin, right? So they still have the intensity of the EMFs, but they're lowering the frequencies and energy levels to a helpful level. So you're just replacing that saturation in the body there as well. What do you put inside the electrical fuse box? I'm trying to think, like in the actual electrical fuse box, I don't think I do put something inside it because I put mine on the smart meter instead, because the energy goes through the smart meter and into the fuse box. So it's getting transformed on site as it's going through. It's like the water heater. I put it on the water intake pipe because there's one piece for the water because your water heater is like baking the water that you drink, bathe yourself with, everything in EMFs, and then it's flooding it out to you, right? My house is 1,600 square feet. Is the portable one still okay if just over 1,500 and only one floor? I would say it's okay. I mean, if you're not overly sensitive too, then you probably will find that it'll work just as well. Would a home flow make more sense if there's a lot of wireless use coming out of neighbors, plus high tension electrical wires 2 blocks away from my house, looking for long-term optimal function? You know, even if the house isn't that big, the extra strength protection of the home flow in that case may be well worth it, Sid. Because the pricing is not hugely different. It's like I think the flow station might be retailing at 1,100 and the home flow might be 1,500. And yes, there's a substantial difference there, but you will get that extra strong protection from the home flow. Does the screen flow need to be upright for the antenna to work? Nope, not really. I've actually got as I said, my kid's one is taped to the back of the screen on this angle. So I've kind of got it taped back there. When he was younger, I had one put in front. We didn't have the base that holds it upright, and I just stuck it underneath the TV like that. Unfortunately, he used to climb up on the TV stand and be right up against the TV when no one was around. Ugh, that was always kind of worrying. I don't have a smart meter, just a fuse box. What would you put inside the box? The same one that we would normally put inside the smart meter. It's called the electric flow. It's part of the home flow. If you're not looking at using a home flow though, I mean, and you're not, I would probably, because the fuse box would then be the main source of that electricity, I'd use a personal flow. With the flow devices in the house, does that mean that there will be no more dirty electricity? Thank you for the station versus home clarification. A huge help. Yep, you're welcome. Does it mean that there'll be no more dirty electricity? To a degree, yeah. I mean, we've never really played too much around with dirty electricity. I remember when we did a course once, we were in a hotel and someone was going around with one of those dirty EMF meters and testing all of the plugs and sockets. And then we brought flow in and we did see a reduction in that. But I don't even know what the meter they were using was. I was teaching someone a microcurrent protocol and they were just playing around in the corner there. Don't tell anyone. I have 4 water heaters. Do I need a flow for each one? If there's a primary one where the water enters your house, that's the best way to go about it. Just place it there. I get that. Like there's lots of different times where you might need other water heaters. I'm currently actually working on a house, building a house with a builder, and we need multiple water heaters just because it makes more sense with the layout of the house to have them. So in that case, yeah, I mean, you could put small flows on each one, or I would say just put the main one on the entry point of where the water goes in. Okay. So I'm going to get to some Facebook questions in a minute here because I kind of feel like I've been neglecting Facebook and I did see some on there. So I apologize, you Facebook watchers. I'm just trying to get through the Zoom questions and they just keep going. So let's hop on there. Here we go. Oh, nope, that's the wrong thing. That was a 10-minute training. Okay. Here we go. I'm going to answer the Facebook questions and then I will come back to the Zoom questions, okay? So is there any damage when passing through security checking at the airport with the personal flow? Not in my experience, no. This is excellent, Dr. Rob. Thank you very much. Can you please explain how this would work with the Nest-style thermostat-style systems? I don't know 100% I know what that is, so I would have to look that up. When you're dealing with like the thermostat, so the heating, there's one they call a heating flow. Now in Europe, air conditioning is very rare. So it is kind of for the heater, air conditioner, HVAC. Typically it goes on the entry point to that unit into the house. And if it's to do with anything like a thermostat, it's just working on um, the actual major source of the EMFs. But it's part of the home flow system. So what you're doing is, remember, these two big guys, they cover your bases for most of the issues, and then the other flows absorb these high input area problems. Would this protect from microwave dangers, like just from like a microwave itself? I mean, you'd be getting some benefit from that, but remember with microwave, you're putting these frequencies in your food as well, and then you're consuming them. So it will help a bit, but it won't kind of counteract the negativity of microwaves. Will the flow station give protection when in the box while in the vehicle? I take it with me while traveling for hotels. Yep, it should do. I mean, when a flow station is lying down, it's got a considerably weaker signal, but if it's in the box standing up, it's not like the box is going to stop it working. Will this company be making a product that could be used on farms, for example, to protect animals in the paddock areas to be used in both the barns and outside areas? I really like that idea. I've seen, as I said, I've seen people connect the flow products to their animals. But yeah, I mean, it's something I can certainly bring up with them because I can see the value in protecting the animals, especially if it's livestock, right? It's your food source and it's being saturated from everything around it. Okay. And there's not normally as many questions on Facebook, so I just wanted to make sure I wasn't leaving them high and dry there. So in the smart meter, it sounds like we actually place a part of the flow system on or inside. What do electric companies think about accessories other than the typical plastic shield? Do they mess with them? Never seen mine be messed with. So the smart meter, obviously this house was a new build. It had a smart meter when I bought it. If I could have avoided it, I would have. We'll see when I move what I can do. But as the smart meter is there, there's the pipe that then goes from the ground, right, into the smart meter and then from the meter into the house. Essentially on the pipe, I tied this thing. I've never had them even look at it or question it. So it doesn't seem to cause any problems and they never touched it. Dumb question. Why do water heaters have EMF? So there's a lot of energy, and not a dumb question. There's a lot of energy because I used to be confused about this too. A lot of electricity or energy has to go into heating up the water. So what you've got this big tank of water that absorbs negative frequencies. If you've ever watched when we talk about PEMFs, you can put positive frequencies into your water. You can also put negative frequencies into them, right? So we can make good, healthy water that we want to drink, or the water that is being heated up is getting heated by the electricity. And in doing so, it's taking on these negative frequencies. Not only that, but wireless will do the same thing. It's going to send these signals into the water, and then the water gets dispersed, and then we drink the crappy water. So that's kind of the reason that we have a water one. It's just because water is life, and it holds frequency and memory as well. Do the flow devices benefit plants as well? Yes, actually. They do say that they benefit plants. I have, if I can show you this without, let's see the other side of my office here. You see I have an indoor garden. I can't stand not having a garden. You see that over there? So that's like one of those hydroponics things. It's a massive tomato plant. I've been growing it for about a month and it produces tons and tons of fruit. It's not wireless or anything. I have a flow that sits next to it over there. But essentially, they've actually shown that not only does it help with plants' growth and the cellular makeup of plants in speed, but also the size of fruiting bodies of plants and things like that, which I think is really interesting and telling as well, for sure. So, anyways, okay, so I think we're getting close to the end. Did you say you attach the flow station to the pipe of your water heater? There's a piece of the home flow. You'll see in the picture there, actually. I'll show it in the picture. There's a piece, these three pieces here. These are not the same size as the antennas, but these three pieces here, I attached one of those, the one that's intended to be used on that, to the water heater, and one to the smart meter, and so on. Okay. All right. So it looks like that's the end of the questions, which is great. We've been doing questions for about 45 minutes, which is kind of coming up to my cap anyway. I have to go start cooking. But I do see one more question coming in here. Thanks for clarifying that we can conceal the flow install on the smart meter so no one knows it's there. I investigated and my electric company charges more for home with analog meter, and they do their best to do a positive spin by saying that it will take much longer. Yeah, do that too. Yeah, it'll take much longer to restore your power if it's not a smart meter. Yeah. If you have a gas water heater, you have to put one on the appliance or on the main. You can put it on the power main essentially. The gas, it will still have to use electricity, but it's less, so it's less of a threat. How often do you use the drops during the day? Just once a day, but it's the drop dosage increases over time. All right, so I will just throw out my last obligatory reminder, guys. So these products are all on sale, 15% off until February 14th. It says 2023. I don't know. I'm still stuck last year. It's 2024 now, guys. So it is until next week on February 14th. The discount code EMF here, you don't have to write this down. It will apply automatically at checkout. And again, you can purchase these items on thesanashop.com/HP. I hope you found the information we talked about today beneficial to you. You know, there's always concerns about different things in the environment. And as much as microcurrent can help change our cells and restore our body, there's only so much we can do if we continuously are bombarded by the negativity, right? It's like living in a mold and all of those issues. Angelica says we can travel back in time. Wouldn't that be great? Hey, I'd buy an extra year. I could definitely do that. Callie, super fascinating, informative. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Patricia. Thanks to everyone who joined today. Remember what I said about the product delivery. I know our stock of flow is not always the best. First come, first serve. We will order new stuff in, obviously. And so it just might be if you order tonight, you're probably going to get your stuff next week. If not, it might be a couple of weeks. But trust us, we'll get it in here and we'll get it out to you. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night. I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks. Bye-bye.